What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 13 of 45 Minutes of Noise. I am your host, slash your boy, Chris Pugh, and I am joined by my very good friend and Mr. Nickel himself, Samuel Lewis, on this Monday evening. How are we?
We are well. We are well. I just had chicken and rice for tea, Chris, and I made it myself. It was very
Nice.
nice. Has anyone ever made the right amount?
Oh, of rice, it's never happened, and it never will, because my mom taught me something good with rice. She mentioned that you need to fill up. If you're gonna have rice just for yourself, you need to have half a teacup. Like get a cup you would usually have tea in, so a mug, I suppose. Half of that will be enough for one person, but it isn't. It's not right.
Chris, I have like two spare plastic takeaway tubs full of chicken and rice now. Like, I guess I was fine to be sorted for the day, but I was just wildly optimistic on my rice eating capacity this afternoon.
And you had already eaten to the point of I can't have another mouthful now. I am
Yeah,
beyond
that
full.
was plus a plate. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It was good
Yeah,
though.
you
It was
really
good
have
though,
did
but
it.
like. But I know I have lunch for 3 to 5 business days, apparently. So here we are.
Feels good to be doing this podcast in the dark, considering we're talking about Cradle of the Filth.
It's very appropriate. Am I right in thinking that the last time we reviewed a Cradle of Filth record, which is the last Cradle of Filth record, there were literal
Yeah.
bat sounds in the background of the record? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a fever dream
Picture
or a
of Danny
different.
Filth hanging upside down from a ceiling as well on the full cover, if I remember.
Yep, yep, fair enough. I just wanted to maintain. Yes, we are. It is very appropriate that we're doing a dark, a little cold evening.
Coming up on today's show, we've got reviews on new records from Cradle of Filth, as mentioned, and new albums from Spiritworld, and we've got news to discuss on Mastodon and Sleep Token. Before we get into the show, we should tell you how you can support us, and the best way to do that is by liking slash subscribing on YouTube or whichever podcast service you use to listen slash watch. You can follow us on X at Noise Podcast, as well as following the Noise platform in general at Noise UK on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You should head to noise.co.uk for all your latest news, album reviews, features, and interviews. Speaking of records, let's move on. Let's start with Spiritworld, Helldorado. What a name for an album that is.
Hmm.
It's out March 21st via Century Media Records. It's the band's third album and the follow-up to 2022's Death Western. Now, when I select albums for the podcast, unless there's a massive album coming out that I already know
Well,
of, such as
well, this has already sound like an apology.
no, no. But when I select albums for the podcast, unless there's a huge one coming up that I'm already aware of, such as like Bleed From Within, that's gonna be on our next episode. I want to review the new Bleed From Within album.
Yeah,
What I
supposed to
then
be
do,
amazing as well, by the way.
I'm sure it will because Bleed From Within are amazing. What I then do, if I can't remember off the top of my head a new album that's coming out, I will then double check of what the release schedule looks like, and then I'll have a look through and think of a band that's like of like real notable size or something that I've heard is really good and that I want us to check out. So Spirit World are a band that I'd heard of kind of through the grapevine, through X, and through like mutual people that listen to heavy metal, etc. And I thought, let me just check them out first before I like suggest them because for all I know, they're like a post grunge band, and I think that I might as well give some a pop punk album. Like we're not going to really have much to discuss here. So what I did was I went on Spot, I went- go on Spotify, listen to like a couple of their songs, but I didn't need to do that for Spirit World because within the first like 30 seconds of listening to one of their songs, which was from their previous album called Death Western, I think it was. I'm just reminding myself the name of it now because it was like unbelievable. What was it called? There we were, Ulcer. It was called Ulcer. So I chucked on the most popular song. And mate, the riff work and the instrumentation, I listened to 15 seconds of it, and I was like, right, we'll review their new album. Absolutely amazing. Because the opening riff work is phenomenal. Me mentioning that really winding, unnecessarily long story all leads up to me asking you this. What do you think of the vocals on this?
You can't sing, Chris.
Yeah. I thought, am I being horrible? Am I just being an arse? But like, he,
Can't
he,
sing, Chris.
he can't sing, can he?
No, there's parts of this that it sounds like a drunken version of like a Bruce Springsteen song, or like Gaslight Anthem, or like someone doing Bryan Adams on
Like
karaoke or
Ivan
something.
Moody from Five Finger Death Punch.
Out of
doesn't it though?
studio. Out of studio.
Yeah, because
Um,
either Moody can actually sing, but like, doesn't it though?
a little,
Does it
yes.
sound like a bit of a FFDP knockoff?
A little, a little. Okay, so how quickly did the novelty wear off for you, Chris?
Right, see, the instrumentation on this album,
Hmm.
I actually find really impressive.
But how quickly were you like, oh, it's the same?
Well, there's a really interesting change up on Birdsong of Death and Prayer Lips, where it becomes like a country rock album. Did
Yeah,
you
yeah, it's like a
notice
real
that?
jangling country tune. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, right, is this going to be like a Volta for the album that then kind of
Mm.
symbolizes them going down? Like the first part of the album, the first three songs are like hard rock, and then we're going to do like country rock, and then we're going to do like hair metal or something for the last. Because I've never listened to Spiritworld before. I'd only listened to like 10, 15 seconds, and I heard the instrumentation. I thought, oh, this will be great for me and Sam. I didn't even listen to the whole song. I was like, right, that'll do. Um, I would say the novelty really wore off when Waiting on the Reaper started, which is what the one, two, three, four, five, which is like the sixth or seventh song, because that's
Mhm.
when it just went back to the same thing they were doing on the first
Yeah.
three, and that was really good instrumentation with vocals that I really don't vibe with.
Yeah, I think similar. I think I was like, okay, country to start into thrash, Red Dead Redemption kind of vibes. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
And then I was like, oh, that riff sounds a bit like Mandatory Suicide by Slayer, just with like a different beat. And then the next one, I was like, oh, this riff also sounds like Mandatory Suicide by Slayer, just with a slightly slower one. This is cool. It's like Clutch if you dipped him in metal a little bit. That sounds good. I'm into that. So the solo at the end of it's like Dimebag Darrell kind of style, really enjoyable. A little bit of turnstile just sort of sprinkled in near the end. A bit of Mad Max vibes on Western Stars The Apocalypse. Really good riffs, really like it. Glad that it doesn't outstay its welcome. But then, yeah, it got into Bird Song of Death. And then it spent too long with his vocals, and I was like, he's not carrying this. And then Prayer Lips was the same. It was like that was where it sounded like Springsteen, where it went from like this sort of Americana kind of chorus into the sax solo over the sort of riffs at the end. I was like, this is just hook, line, and sinker Springsteen, just with a just with nonsensical lyrics and worse vocals. And then yeah, it went back to
lyrics.
yeah, and then it went back to Waiting on the Reaper. And that's when I was like, yeah, it's identical again. It's mandatory suicide, but slowed down. Um, Oblivion the same. Obviously, cleansing was a nice interlude, and then Stigmata was okay, but I had to listen to that a couple of times to remember what happened in it. Like
Mate,
I
the
always admit,
lyrics.
yeah, yeah, not ideal. And then
Ah,
by the time I was got to Annihilism, it said, it seems okay, but once you get past the interesting of the blend, did they do either of these things really well? I'm not entirely sure. It just it's just like it feels like when it's like, oh, have you tried chocolate and red hot chili peppers? They're like classed together as a variation, but that's what you go to snack. It's just better than you expected it to be. You know,
yeah.
it's oh, it's an interesting combination of flavors, but once that dies away, like it's just two things that you don't like very much together. And it just feels like that. It's all right. It's okay. It's a little bit like sort of grimy, and it sounds like the kind of thing that they'd written for like a Mad Max film or an open RPG or like Fallout or something. Like this would be a great soundtrack to a Fallout record. Like this is just sort of playing in the back of a crackling speaker while you're sort of rambling around looking for aliens to shoot and stuff. Because it does sound kind of vaguely dystopian. But the songs aren't good enough and the vocals aren't strong enough to lift this anything other than, oh, it's surprising that it mixes those two things. It doesn't get better than that. That initial novelty of being like I'll when this comes out, I'll show Lauren and I'll be like, listen to this. This is weird, isn't it? And she'll be like, yeah. I was like, the rest of it's good. And I was like, do you like that? She's like, yeah. So I'll be that's about it. Like once the surprise goes away, that is kind of the shock factor. Like does a lot of water carrying for the rest of the record. Um, Other than that, it's all right. It's like pretty rambunctious and interesting, and I had a good time with um the first few days, like a few songs of this, sorry. But yeah, after that, I was like, oh, okay, all right, back to the blueprint again, boys. This this style of stuff maybe could be a couple of singles on a different kind of record, where it breaks away from it to do stuff like this, but it's not enough to dedicate 10 to 12 tracks to, in my view.
So for me, this is kind of like a bit damning for the record. So if I told you there are 12 people that worked on this album, there are 12
Really?
musicians, there are 12
There's,
musicians
there's 11
on this
people that
album.
worked on this that sing worse than this guy.
Well, I've got, and to be clear there, I don't mean 12 people on any given song. I mean overall 12 people have kind of added to this record from bassists to organs to
No.
purely vocal backing vocals, some acoustic guitar, some sax, obviously you mentioned that. Um it, and yet I've said that, and the album,
It's like monotonal.
it's it really doesn't do a lot. I'm trying not to sound like just unbelievably unnecessarily critical, but the record doesn't really do much considering 12 people are on it. And then Stu Folsom he's basically the band. Stu Folsom is in the same way that like the scenario with Beartooth. So Stu Folsom
Yeah,
is
a
also
band of real versatility too.
Stu Folsom is actually he's a writer as
Maybe
well.
one guy shouldn't write 100% of a record. Do you know what I mean?
So, and he is vocalist, electric guitarist, acoustic guitarist, backups, MIDI drums, sampling, synths, and percussion. Stu Folsom. So he is the band essentially, and then he
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
kind of back. He
That
gets
makes
back in
sense,
music,
doesn't it?
and yeah, and then he gets backing musicians in to come and play the instrument. To Stu Folsom is a great vocalist for me. He can write good instrumentation though.
Yeah, yeah. He's a good reformer. He'd be a very good rhythm guitarist in a hard rock band,
Yeah.
like in somebody else's hard rock band. Like this is all right. Like don't get me wrong. Like, and if you're into this, like great, whatever. Because guess what? The rest of it is like that. So whatever. But well, I don't start a podcast to blow V8 and give empty compliments to bands. So as far as I'm concerned, it's all about honest criticism here. The first three songs were really, really good, and the next 7 to 8 just feel like Diet Coke facsimiles of the first three.
That, you know what, that's probably the best way to summarize the record. That is the first three songs are quite kind of eye catching because there's some great riff work, and actually on Abilene Grime, the first 10 seconds, ironically, the same like something Crowd of Filth would do because they've got that kind of those kind of gothic screams and that kind of organ opening.
Yeah, really, really
Then
grabs
they've got
you the
this.
first couple of tunes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, they've got this really nice hard rock riff that brings you into like the kind of meat of the record. Um, No Vacancy in Heaven. That's the first time I was like, I literally typed it in here. I was like, don't bet the vocals here. I couldn't escape the Five Finger Death Punch vibe that it gave me. But there's some delicious riff work. There's a moment on No Vacancy in Heaven where they use this audible silence. They just pause for 2 seconds, and then you get the return to the lead riff, and you get this guttural scream as well. That bit's great. It's the best 15 seconds on the record. Like it works really, really well. In Western Stars and the Apocalypse, you get that you mentioned that a couple of times. This Slayer like brutal opening. There's a nice production on Western Stars and the Apocalypse. And then you get the Bird Song of Death and Prayer Lips 1-2 punch, where it kind of moves into a country record. And on Prayer Lips, I was thinking, is he trying to sound like Johnny Cash here? Like what, not entirely sure what's actually happening. And then we've mentioned Waiting on the Reaper comes in and he just returns back to the same sound that you heard on the first three tracks, and you realise that you already heard the greatest part of this album. The lyrics on Stigmata Scars, man, that's their hard work. They are essentially he just shouts the title of the song and adds on my head. Stigmata Scars on my head. Stigmata Scars on my head. I was listening. I was like, "What? What's happening here? This is rough." I actually think Annihilism was a nice way to was a nice way to close off the record. I think it might be the best vocal performance on the album on Annihilism, by a considerable distance as well. Again not one of those large and dramatic shifts in tonality, but it is for me. That's a welcome way to close off. Um, overall, there's some real tremendous moments of like snarly instrumentation and generally good fun on this record, but I think it's plagued by its vocal style that I just find jarring, sloppy, and it's sometimes downright old-fashioned. So
Yeah, I don't want to be overtly critical, at least not anymore. But I I just thought at its best it was pretty interesting and pretty rambunctious and quite fun. Like this is something that you could like stick on a playlist and one of the tunes and sort of make you sort of, oh, that's interesting. But the rest of it doesn't sort of um benefit. This would be a good EP or
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
part of a soundtrack elsewhere. I just don't think there's enough variation or songwriting weight for it to justify an album. Um, and it's perfectly interesting, but after that, it sort of loses its impact and stuff. But if this really vibes with you, then the whole album will, because it does follow that kind of similar trend. Um, I liked the blend at first, and I think maybe there's a little bit of potential to have explored it further. But overall, I don't think it does that really, and it loses momentum pretty quickly. So yeah, um, it's a half decent record, I would say.
That is where we're going to leave it for this episode of 45 Minutes of Noise. Thank you so much for sticking around. We really appreciate it. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. We're going to be talking about a new record from Bleed From Within, and by the looks of it, a new record from Scowl as well. Although I do need to double check that release window to see if there's anything else coming up around that time. A reminder that you can support us by liking and subscribing on YouTube. Follow us on X at Noise Podcast. And you should go to noise.co.uk for all your latest news, album reviews, and interviews. Thank you so much for listening to us. We are going back in 2 weeks' time. Keep it heavy. Thank you. Bye.